Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel for this Tuesday morning, afternoon or evening across the world where you may be at. And today in the UK, as I read on the first video, it is UK Disability History Month, and as a legally disabled autistic woman, autistic adult, I wanted to talk about why disability is a taboo and the language around disability. I feel this is a topic that isn't often brought up within the disability or autism community, and I really recently watched a video inspired by this topic by some local disabled women who are on a local breakfast primetime TV show called This Morning. I will link the clip down below in the video description so you guys can watch it. But as a legally autistic adult, I want to give you the definition of what disability is. So according to the gov.uk official government page here for the UK where I'm at, it says the definition of disability: if you're disabled under the Equality Act of 2010, if you have a physical or mental impairment that has a substantial and long-term negative effect on your ability to do the normal everyday activities. So that is the term that the UK government actually uses. So why are people scared to talk about disability? What stops them, and why are they so frightened to talk about it? Let's get into it. So I believe that people are scared to talk about it because they're scared to get their foot in their mouth. They're scared to bring up the wrong words or the wrong questions, or they're frightened they're going to use something that is offensive or derogatory, or they're going to say something that might cause distress or alarm or potentially harm someone with a disability, whether it's physical, mental, intellectual, visual, auditory or otherwise. And I think that's the reason why the language around disability and why disability is still a taboo, even though we are in now 2024, coming towards the end of 2024. I think that the reason why taboo still exists around disability is because of people's perceived ideas or people's perceived tones or perceived knowledge of what disability is or is not, according to their own feelings, emotions, and what they've seen and read on the media. I think each disabled person though has their own different experiences. Like obviously I'll have my own experiences from other disabled people or other autistic people. We're not all the same. We all go through our own trials, tribulations, barriers, challenges, if you want to call it that words. I think the reason why we have a lot of barriers and the language is still not accessible is because people are frightened what to say or what words to choose or what words to say to you in case they cause offence or alarm or distress, or potentially could cause meltdowns or anxiety with not intending to. I'm not saying that these people are intending to cause alarm, distress, frustration, upset, anger, disrespect, disknowledge. No, they're not. I'm not saying that people in the non-disabled or non-mental health or non-physical disability community are being potentially rude or rotten or disrespectful. No, I'm not. I think again it comes down to each particular disabled person and their terms, their identities, what they like to be used to describe them, to identify them, to be talked to. I think again it comes down to personal barriers, personal language, personal discretion. I think that is something that we have to take into account with each disabled person, whether it's a speech impediment, a physical impediment, a mental impairment, a auditory impairment, a mental impairment, depends, or a neurodevelopmental or neurodiverse impairment. It depends on the actual person. I think again this also comes down to my next point, which is about safety of disabled people. I think again language and safety of disabled people is crucial. I think because a lot of us don't often know how to communicate with others who are non-disabled, or don't really realise the words that we are using are inappropriate, or the people that are using the words towards us can be inappropriate with disrespecting us, or the way they talk about us as in a way of a fetish or a way of wanting to make fun or poke fun or be derogatory or just discriminatory in nature and language. I think communication is got such a long way to go still. I think we've got such a long way to go with acceptance. I know we've come a long way and we have improved in the years, decades gone by, but I think we are still a long way from total disability inclusion when it comes to the workplace, TV, media. I think we need to have a lot more disabled people working within the frontline media to represent different disabilities, different mental disabilities, physical disabilities, intellectual disabilities, auditory disabilities, people who have short stature, like dwarfism, or people who are just short in height in nature. I'm trying to be careful with language, obviously, that I'm using here. Obviously, it's to do with the right questions, the right wording, the right language. It's again about self-identification, self-identity, how we identify as legally disabled people. And I think that is a way to become more inclusive. I think if we sit down around the table and have this discussion, not just with disabled people, but with non-disabled people, I think it's going to come across a lot more easier, and the conversation is going to be a lot more flowing than what it has been for some time. I think, obviously, there's a lot of stigmas and stereotypes still, so whether that's to do with, oh, well, you don't appear disabled, or you don't look disabled, or you don't act disabled. I know that's meant with kindness and kind of a backhanded compliment, but again, it's a case of we are disabled. Just because we don't look it or act it or sound it doesn't mean that we don't struggle and that our disability is not there. It is there every day. We have to live with it. We're the ones that go through the challenges, the barriers, the non-accessible platforms and non-accessible buildings sometimes that we enter, because we are wanting to make changes to make that more accessible for us in the long-term future. Also, it's language, like, people don't realise we are disabled by our environment. So it's not just that we are disabled physically or mentally or intellectually, auditory, intellectually, mentally, physically, we are disabled by the environment. The environment and people and society disable us because they use words like, oh, well, you can't do this, or you won't do this, and it makes us feel even more worthless and makes us feel more isolated than what we already are. So again, that does cause a lot of frustration and problems. Also, this leads on nicely to my next point, that we have to constantly prove who we are with people with disabilities. We have to constantly prove that we are who we say we are, that we are disabled. Again, it's because especially females with disabilities, I'm not saying males don't do this too, but I've noticed it more within the female disabled community, that a lot of us have to constantly prove that we do have disabilities, whether it's autism or a mental impairment, physical impairment, intellectual impairment, auditory impairment, mental health impairment. It's not always obvious. We've learnt to mask and mimic successfully for so long that we don't often get believed. It's like when you say to people, oh, well, especially with me, because obviously I'm autistic, so when people say to me, oh, well, Jeremy, you don't act autistic, or you don't look autistic, or you don't present like you're struggling, and whilst I take that as a compliment in some degree, it's a case of I am autistic. I do struggle with anxiety, chronic anxiety, bad anxiety, to the point where I often cry, I get frustrated, I get angry because I don't know how to deal with it. And I will give you an example. From a couple of days ago, I knew I had a meeting coming up, and I had to go to a meeting yesterday, and that meeting got me in such a bad state that I was panicking about it, and panicking led to then having a panic attack, and then having an anxiety attack, and then when I got to that meeting, what I thought was going to happen didn't. So I stressed myself out and made myself ill for nothing. But at the same point, my brain was going, oh no, this is going to be bad. Oh dear, you're not going to cope. This is going to really suck. You're going to really be worn out at the end of this meeting, and you're going to be feeling like absolute poop. And, obviously you can tell by my throat, I'm not well. I'm feeling absolute poop. And yeah, so again, it's not knowing our body, sometimes our signals, and, so that's that. And I think a lot of people don't realise a lot of people with disabilities are wanting to be included and accepted within society. A lot, especially women, have a lot of hidden disabilities. So again, we're often not believed or accepted in society for being disabled. But I think that discussion is getting better. I think we have come a long way, and we are getting a lot better with inclusion and being accepted. But again, there is still that barrier of going, but, is she? Has she? What do I say? What do I ask? And that needs to stop, because just ask us. We are the people that live with it. If we don't want to talk about it, we'll say no. But a lot of us want to have the open dialogue. We want to have the open communication. We want to talk to you. We want to help you. We want to help you understand what it's like for us to be disabled. So again, I think it's just that way of including people with a disability in society in the wider circle. And then lastly, I want to talk about the language that surrounds disability. Again, it's from the gov.uk UK government website. So everything that I've used is from the government legislation. And words such as, do not use the word disabled. It's only a description. Use the word disabled people. So again, you're not using just one word. It's a wider word to say. Avoid using our diagnostic label or disability label. Instead, label us with our own individual terms or names or conditions that we live with. Avoid using handicapped word. Oh, this is a word that I experience quite a bit, and I don't know if it's from ignorance, or if I don't know if it's from being scared of me, or if it's a word that people just want to throw in my face, because it's like, oh, well, you're disabled, you're handicapped. No. Please don't use that word about me or any other person with a disability. Please use, again, disabled people or people with long-term disability or the condition. And again, this is the same for people with wheelchairs. Instead of saying confined wheelchair user, say independent wheelchair user, because again, you're not then isolating them to what they're sitting in all the time. And again, when it comes to mental health conditions or mental disabilities, do not say mentally handicapped. Instead, using a person with a mental health condition or a learning disability, because again, you don't know how separate them two conditions are. And also people that may have a physical walking impairment, do not use the word cripple or invalid. Use, again, disabled person or person with a long-term walking condition. Do not use person with a mental health issue. Do not say the word mental person or crazy person. Use the term instead person with a mental health issue or condition. With a blind person, do not say blind person. You use the term a person with a visual impairment or partial impairment sighting. Is to describe people with epilepsy or diabetes or depression. Instead, use person with epilepsy, a person with diabetes, a person living with depression. For people who are short of stature or have a growth issue, please use person with growth issue or short stature issue or restricted growth limitations. For people who have fits, so again, people with epilepsy or people with other syndromes that have fits, do not call them fits or attacks or spells. Please use the word seizures. So I hope I've explained to you why this is important to open up that discussion and to accept us as disabled people, not just our conditions or our labels. But please like this video, comment, share and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye!